So you got $100
My
in
dad
2009. How'd you get your first million?
I started a drug company called Retrophin.
How did that happen? How do you just start your own drug company?
How could someone with no medical degree or even a science background become a CEO of a pharmaceutical company? If you watch popular media, they'll have you believe that Shkreli made money by being a cheat. Most people assume that he was born into a wealthy family dynasty because no one has ever seen someone with his background become so rich within the pharmaceutical industry. Regardless of what you believe, and putting all political and ethical differences aside, it is worth studying Martin's rise to success. Martin Shkreli was born to Albanian immigrants in 1983. Shkreli's parents were janitors with no college education. He grew up in a tough neighborhood in New York. He was interested in hedge funds since a young age. If you don't know what a hedge fund is, it's just a fancy investing group. It's like gambling on stocks using other people's money. After graduating high school, he went to Baruch College to study business administration while working under Jim Cramer as an intern. Shkreli later revealed that he regretted his decision to study finance in college. This is a very important lesson that must not be overlooked. It gives you a glimpse into Martin's mindset. This provides you an idea of how he transitioned into the medical field. The people who are successful have the ability to forgive fate and look to the future. Another example is Vivek Ranadiv, a billionaire and Sacramento Kings owner. He initially graduated with degrees grounded in hardware, only to realize he was living in the golden age of software development. Instead of succumbing to his perceived disadvantage, he surrounded himself with software experts and started a software business which generated billions of dollars. While working under a hedge fund company, Martin Shkreli was assigned the task of studying biomedical companies. While most stock analysts study market psychology and spend the majority of their time looking at what is happening on the news, Martin decided to take a novel approach. He spent his time learning about the science of medicine to allow him to predict whether a drug or treatment will work. In a Forbes article titled "How Did Martin Shkreli Even Become a Pharmaceutical CEO?", the author concludes that Martin Shkreli was a charlatan who fooled people by memorizing and regurgitating facts from medical journals and textbooks. The author could not have been more wrong. This goes back to my observation of how emotions can blind you to reality and potential knowledge. If there is a person you hate in life, the best revenge is to steal their knowledge. After watching Shkreli's science videos, you will recognize that Shkreli's strength is not to memorize random facts, but to have a deep understanding on the foundations of science. What is even more impressive is that Martin is linked to the creation of 2 drugs that treat PCAN, a genetic disease of the brain. Another strength of Martin Shkreli was his optimism. Sure, his views are simplified and don't take into consideration the potential setbacks when starting a new endeavor, but I argue that it was this simplicity that prevented him from being dismayed by challenges. He was able to start venturing into new fields while his peers were content with not broadening their horizons. Being an autodidact is one of the reasons for his success. Although he doesn't learn every second of his life, Martin doesn't wait to be forced by his work or his school to learn something new. If you limit your learning within the confines of school and work, you won't be able to produce ideas like Martin. After 4 years working under Jim Cramer, Shkreli decided he learned enough and started his own hedge fund called Aliyah Capital Management in 2006. The company failed and the investors lost money. Without being deterred, he started a new hedge fund called MSMB Capital Management in 2009. Creating an investing firm even though your initial company failed isn't uncommon. Another famous money manager, Ray Dalio, did the same thing. Under such circumstances, it is possible to convince the investors that your new company will produce better results. So how did MSMB Capital do? Was Martin able to redeem himself like Ray Dalio after his failure? No, he failed again. We have to understand how depressed he must have been at this point in his life. As a kid, he went to a high school for gifted students. Throughout his life, he was probably regarded as having an exceptional mind who was about to take over the world. And for a while, it seemed that way. But in reality, for the past 5 years, he barely made any money personally, and now he's forced to move in with his parents to survive. Hell, he would have been wealthier had he remained a low-level analyst under Jim Cramer. At this point, no one would blame him for quitting. I mean, you failed your investors twice. How could you even continue even if you wanted to? Well, here is where things take a dark turn. Shkreli lied to his investors. He went back to his investors and told them that things are going great and that he wants to start a drug company called Retrophin as an umbrella company under MSMB Capital. Instead of paying his investors back in cash, he gives them stocks in Retrophin. In a video, Martin would admit that despite spending a majority of his life studying the stock market, he wasn't good at it. He instead realized that starting drug companies was something he was good at. Being an investor himself and making connections with pharmaceutical investors, he knew exactly what investors wanted to hear.
Well, the mind is a very powerful thing. I mean, I started 2 companies from scratch that ended up being worth a lot, so, there's definitely, where there's a will, there's a way.
So you can do anything.
Absolutely, man. I think everyone here could start a very successful company tonight if they put their mind to it.
What do you look
How do you start a company from scratch? Like, how do you go about financing it and getting it off?
It's crazy. It's fucking it's an adventure. You know, it's the only way you can look at it.
First off, it only costs like $100 to get an LLC. So
No,
Yeah.
it's more than that. It's like 600, 650.
It doesn't matter what it costs. The point is it's an adventure, and you know you gotta think of it like trying to get level 80 on World of Warcraft. It's funny, you know, a lot of people think investors is the hardest part. It's really not. There's an infinite amount of people who are trying to make lots of money. Infinite. And the stock market's the easiest way to access them. Before you go to the stock market, of course, you need money from some other source. And again, there's still an infinite amount of money out there. There's a shortage of great ideas. There's a shortage of courageous people. There's a shortage of focused people. There's a shortage of experienced people. That's what's rare. Capital is plentiful. There's unlimited amounts of it. So I think people is maybe the hardest part. You got to find a team. You know, a lot of people think it's a solo game. It really isn't. I mean, there's nothing more important than your squad. You know, even if you're the best, you know, at what you do and you're the best idea person, like you really need the best squad you can find. And these have to be ride or die soldiers. You know, they can't be. You need the hardest neighbors you can find. People who will go to work, OGs that will go to work.
What do you have to do to tap into that network of people who are, you know, who have the capital? So you got your team.
Well, you still go back to keep going back to the investor side, but I gotta tell you, if you're doing a good job, the investors will come because, you know, I'll give you an example. You know, especially if you're first, it doesn't matter what kind of business you're in, by the way. But let's say you're in the pharma business and you say, look, I can't do this by myself. I have some ideas for some drugs, but I know I can't do this by myself. I'm gonna hire a guy from Merck or a guy from Pfizer. And then you're gonna count on somebody in your team. Somebody is gonna have the relevant expertise of investor relations, right? Somebody's gonna say, I know an investor. And it might be the guy from Pfizer who knows one venture capitalist. But you sit in a room with your small team, maybe it's 2 people, maybe it's 3 people, maybe it's 10 people, maybe it's just 1 person. And you say, who here of us is the least stupid on the subject? And whoever that person is, it's now their responsibility to do that thing. And more often than not, one of the best ways to find investors is through an investment bank. Time and time again, entrepreneurs forget that there is a role in the world for raising capital. People do this for a living. And you can find consultants and investment banks that will go find you investors. And you pay them a fee to do that. You can pay them 6-7%. Shit, if you're really desperate for capital, you go find an investment bank and say, hey, I need $1 million real soon, and I'll pay you 10%. And they'll go fucking find some idiots to invest with you. And you can lower your valuation, right? You get out better terms. There's always a way. So you got to go out there. But of course, you know, you hope that your team has a reputation.
You need the credibility to do that, though.
I'm not so sure, dude. You know, Mark Zuckerberg went to Peter Thiel, got $500,000 check. I think you just need.
But he had like 300 million active users almost.
No. When he had 300 million active users, he was a multi-billionaire. Come on.
I think so, but still, he was doing the numbers.
Nah. You know, you can. My friend came to me with an app idea. I gave him $500,000. It's the same deal that Zuckerberg and Thiel had. So, you know, someone who knows somebody, and again, an investment banker's job is to know people.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
So
that's part of the network that we were speaking of, that team.
Well, you know, you call up an investment bank, and you know that's that. You know, people get funded every day. So It's basically just, finding capital. If you can't find capital, you're either doing one or two things wrong. You're not doing it intelligently, one, or two, you don't deserve to be funded. And confronting that reality sooner than later is a good idea. So a lot of people say, I'm having a hard time finding capital. Unless you've talked to 100 plus accredited and institutional investors, you haven't tried. If you talk to over 100 accredited, in other words, high net worth, or institutional investors, and you haven't been able to raise the capital you need, and you've been flexible on the terms you're offering, etc., you need to fold up that business. Or it will fold itself if you can't raise the money. So, that's...
He ended up saying the right things and raised $100 million for his first drug company. Not only did he say the right things, but he had a solid business plan from studying drug companies as a profession. And indeed, Retrofin was a success. Its stock quadrupled in value with shkreli's leadership and business sense. His old investors who lost their money made it all back and a lot more. Yet, what he did was illegal and deserved to go to jail. He shifted funds around companies and raised money from investors under false pretense. Retrofin alleged that Martin stole money to pay back his hedge fund investors. Although no one lost money, Martin could have easily ended up like Bernie Madoff had his later companies not succeeded. In September 2014, Martin was fired by Retrofin's board. A Vanity Fair article said, not to be deterred, shkreli set up new offices by the weekend and started a new company. An investor recalled that Martin Shkreli has a relentless determination not to let anything stop him. Shkreli named his new company Turing, after Alan Turing. In 2015, Shkreli purchased the drug Daraprim, and the world was introduced to Martin Shkreli, aka Pharma Bro, the supervillain. You don't have to like Martin, and frankly, I don't like him either, but we must learn from him. In September 2015, the FBI arrested Martin due to allegations of securities fraud and running a Ponzi scheme. While fighting a case that could potentially land him in prison for multiple decades, he was under a tremendous amount of stress, as he explains in this video. Yes, under circumstances where someone might even commit suicide, Martin decided to start a software company. It is an example of resilience that we all possess within us if we choose to. Martin named the company Godel Systems and planned on revolutionizing how information was transferred within pharmaceutical industries. He learned computer programming and even wrote a big chunk of the company's software. On August 4th, 2017, the trial jury found Shkreli guilty on 2 counts of securities fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit securities fraud. He was sentenced to serve 7 years. Even while in prison, he was a voracious reader of medical journals and non-fiction books, and recently news broke that he was running Turing Pharmaceuticals from prison using a contraband cell phone. After finding out about this, he was moved to a different federal prison. Hopefully I answered the question of how Martin Shkreli started a drug company, and I hope you learned something new. I would recommend watching Martin's many videos on finance, chemistry, and business. It gives you a unique insight into someone who made it in the industry. Please like and subscribe if you learned something new. Thank you for watching this video.
I know he can teach us a lot about business, Mr. C. Montgomery Burns.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Family, religion, friendship. These are the 3 demons you must slay if you wish to succeed in business. When opportunity knocks, you don't want to be driving to the maternity hospital or sitting in some phony baloney church or synagogue.